he realizes that the crowds have gathered and they're potentially following for the wrong reasons. So Jesus wants them to count the cost before they go any further. For a North American Christian, and what's brilliant about this is some of you have been brought up in a Christian home. Some of you, you're second, third, fourth generation Christians in your family. What Jesus wants us to know is before you go any further, it would behoove you to stop for a quick moment and to count the cost before you go any further. Why is Jesus saying this? Jesus is preparing the disciples. Why does he speak in parables? He's preparing the disciples for what's coming. What's coming? Verse 27. And anyone who does not carry his cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. What's coming? What's coming? Persecution like the world has never seen before is on the horizon. Rejection like the Christian world has never experienced before is on the horizon. And Jesus wants the large crowd that has gathered, Jesus wants them to count the cost before they move forward. Because the time is coming when persecution and rejection is going to come so strong and so hard that they're just going to turn and they're just going to run the opposite way anyways. So Jesus is saying this, count the cost now. Does this not remind you of Peter? Remember after Jesus is crucified? Remember Peter? He's challenged 3 times. And in the 3 times after Jesus is crucified, and he's challenged, are you one of the followers of Jesus? Are you one of Jesus' disciples? And 3 times remember that Peter denies him even knowing Jesus, let alone walking in close intimacy and close proximity with Jesus for 3+ years. Which is funny is the first one, the little girl who challenges Peter, she's probably like kindergarten age. Peter can't even step up, and he can't even show his allegiance to Jesus to a young 11-year-old girl, to a young kindergarten girl. Peter can't even show his allegiance and his love for Jesus to a little girl. And Jesus is looking at the crowd saying, count the cost, because the time is going to come where persecution like you've never even thought of, rejection like you've never even imagined is going to come. And if you're not 100% in, you can't be my disciple, because it's not going to make sense to you. And it's certainly not going to make sense to the world that's looking at you and seeing what it means to be my disciple. Jesus is forcing the large crowd to count the cost. He's forcing the crowd to evaluate their motives for being there. He's forcing North American Christians and challenging their motives of why they're in church. Challenging their motives of why they want to follow Jesus with their life. Challenging our motives on why we call ourselves Christians. Because cultural Christianity reigns in North America. There's a ton, millions, tens of millions of people in North America who call themselves Christians who've yet counted the cost of what it means to be a disciple. And Jesus is making sure that they know disciples are learners. Disciples are learners. Come on, roll that out. And this should apply with me. Disciples are learners. And if we're going to learn, what's going to be required of us? If we're going to learn, what's going to be required? Just say count the cost, because if you want to learn what it means to be my disciple, you're going to have to stick close to me. And so Jesus just weeds the crowd out. He weeds them out. For those who are left, someone said Jesus turned around and goes, okay, good. Now they're gone. Boys, you ready? And he turns to his disciples It tells them a little parable. Verse 28, suppose when he wants to build a tower, will he not first sit down and estimate the cost to see if he has enough money to complete it? For if he lays the foundation and is not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule him, saying, this fellow began to build and was not able to finish. So he tells really two parables, two stories. This is the first of two. And he likens it to probably a guy who wants to build a watchtower in a vineyard. So vineyards that are out in the open, this is the Mediterranean, they were plentiful. And so all the vineyards had watchtowers to watch over their land, to watch over their fruit, to watch over their livelihood. What good is a watchtower if all you have is a foundation? And if all you have is a foundation, it's a reminder that every time someone walks past the foundation, they're going to ridicule. It is a reminder, look what you've started, but you've never completed. Look what you've attempted to do, but you've yet to finish. Look at the identity that you've intended to create. Now look how short you've come. My fear is this little parable illustrates a ton of North American Christianity. My fear is this parable, it shows and it depicts similarities to maybe even us tonight. A fool only begins a construction process and doesn't count the cost, estimate what it's going to cost, so he knows what it's going to do and he knows how it's going to turn out. He goes on to share another parable. He says, verse 31, I suppose a king is about to go to war against another king. Will he not first sit down and consider whether he is able with 10,000 men to oppose one coming against him with 20,000? If he is not able, he will send a delegation while the other is still a long way off and will ask for terms of peace. In the same way, verse 33, any of you who does not give up everything he has cannot be my disciple. Can Jesus say anything more clear? Verse 33, in the same way, any of you who does not give up everything he has cannot be my disciple. That verse is the reason why it's so difficult to preach this tonight. That's why it's difficult to stand up in front of you and to walk you through a set of scriptures, to walk you through this story, to walk you through this parable Jesus teaches. Because I don't even do that extremely well. Let alone our community even doing this well. No one who does not give up everything, not one of us who doesn't give up everything, is not fit to be my disciple. Cannot be my disciple. What is Jesus explaining here? This is what A.W. Tozer, I've read this before, I think it's great to read this again. This is what A.W. Tozer calls the Jesus and disease. He says this in The Pursuit of God. It was written in 1948. He says, when religion has said its last word, there is little that we need other than God himself. When religion, about religion, he's not talking about this deep, intimate proximity relationship to Jesus. When religion has said its last word, there's little that we need other than God himself. The evil habits of seeking God and, listen to these words, the evil habits of seeking God and effectively prevents us from finding God in full revelation. This is a brilliant way to surmise all of what Jesus is saying in these parables. The evil habit of seeking God and effectively prevents us from finding God in full revelation. Those of us who have yet to experience God in full revelation, who've yet to find God in full revelation. What the scriptures are telling us at this point is that there's a Jesus and something else in our life. And as long as there's something else, and we don't hate that something or someone else, we'll never fully know who God is. We'll fully never know who Jesus is, and therefore we can't be his disciples. And in the end lies our great woe. But if we do away with the and, we shall soon find God. And in him we shall find that for which we have all our lives been secretly longing. If we can do away with the and,